Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. See, that's why I need a team. We all keep each other going. So, and welcome, Teresa, down there. I didn't welcome to our team. So, this is Donna, and she's going to share a little bit what her role is in Regnum Christi and how we might be interfacing with her more.
Okay, so thank you, ladies. I'm Donna Garrett. I live in Omaha, Nebraska. I have been a Regnum Christi member since 1999. We do not have a legionary community here. We do not have a consecrated community here. We never have. We've always borrowed a priest, either from St. Louis when there was a community there, or Chicago when there was a community there. Now, there are no longer communities in either one of those places. So we are grabbing our resources from someplace else now. And I'm going to explain that. So the first six years of the Regnum Christi Federation, so after the new statutes were approved, we worked really hard on growing and establishing like more robust localities. So those essentially where the communities were. So like Cincinnati, Detroit, up New York, Dallas, Houston, those types of things. Most of the effort went there. But not completely, because we had RC Life Department, and we were doing some webinars for section directors and team leaders and those types of things. But there was a concerted effort 18 months ago to when we started the next 6 years of our life in the Federation to really go after now and support those Regnum Christi communities in what we call developing localities. So those communities that don't have legionary and consecrated communities in them, and probably won't have them, because it takes 12 years to grow a legionary and 8 to grow a consecrated. So by the time we get those resources, it's going to take a very long time for communities to form in all the areas in the United States and Canada. And we certainly don't want to wait. We don't want that to, I'm going to have everybody put yourself on mute so there's not a feedback if you can. And then just come on when you're ready to come off, you can, or when you want to talk, you can just put yourself on. You can talk. So anyway, so they asked me to leave the RC Life department that I had started 7 years ago and to start this developing localities team. And the idea was to empower the lay people who live in those communities to fully live their Regnum Christi vocation according to their states in life. And to really zero in on what kind of resources, both material resources, be it study circles or webinars or conferences or what have you, spiritual exercises, make sure they had the opportunity for spiritual direction if they wanted it. And then what kind of personnel could we help them with? Like, could we make available so that they could continue to grow? Because we realize that we can't be completely dependent on the legionaries or the consecrated in order for Regnum Christi to flourish. But in a complete absence of them, we are missing a piece of that where the whole spiritual family is not represented. And we do hold very closely to our hearts this desire that all members should have access to a spiritual exercise once a year if they want to. So we want to make sure that that's available, at least to the areas where the communities are asking for that. So we created this developing localities team that essentially I split the country and Canada and the United States up into essentially 4 areas: the western side of Canada, the eastern side of Canada, the eastern seaboard of the United States, and then the western side where there aren't communities. I assigned a woman to each of those areas who would accompany the leaders, like Teresa. Some of them are section directors, some of them are group leaders, and some of those areas, there's only like 2 team leaders, and maybe there's 2 teams. So we set up a system of accompaniment, so everybody has a point person that they can go to as often as they want to get support for the role that they're trying to lead. And then I do have a couple of Legionary of Christ priests who've been assigned to my team to help with things like spiritual exercises or a very targeted formative event where you're really working as a community to get new people there. You want to expose them to the Legionary of Christ vocation, you're looking for something in particular. Okay, well, then I will work to get a priest who can come and actually serve in that capacity so that your growth isn't inhibited by a lack of personnel resources. So that's like a big summary of what my team does. So that's why I'm speaking to Northeast Ohio. And before Ginger Kramer was your predecessor, correct? So I used to speak with her on a fairly regular basis prior to Teresa stepping up. So one of the things we also did is there is a department called lay member support. So Maria Knuth, who lived in the Cincinnati locality for many, many years, okay, she is spearheading this area of lay member support. And the goal of that department or that area is to develop the resources that are necessary for lay-led, lay-run localities to flourish. I mean, everybody that's a Regnum Christi member will flourish from the resources she's developing. But in particular, she also has a heart for those people that are in the developing areas. So when Teresa and I were speaking, I was telling her there are three things happening that I think your area would benefit from. There is, of course, the national convention that's happening in Chicago, October 30th to like November 1st or 2nd. There are going to be some regional conventions that come from that. And I know somebody in Cincinnati is on that regional team. And I believe that conference is going to be in St. Louis. So those are ways for like a deeper exposure and a deeper encounter with the charism. But there are also things that are virtual. So those are two things I wanted to talk to you about today. The first is Maria's department has created a webinar series, one in the fall and one in the spring for each of the leadership roles in a section. So for a section director, there will be one in the fall and one in the spring. For a group leader, for a team leader, and for and those who are on the section leadership team, like if you call it your AFIRE team or your leadership team, there's one for those people too. So each of those webinars, there's just one webinar in the fall for each of those different roles on a different night. And the idea is to bring everybody kind of into the most, I guess I would say current language and understanding of that role in light of our statutes, but not just the statutes, in light of the fact that the church herself is changing, like the people of God, we're evolving, we're changing. So the way that we transmit our charism, even though the charism has been the same forever, the way we transmit it might change to address the audience right in front of us. So it's important for us as leaders to be up to date and up to speed on that type of language. So in the fall, there is a webinar for each of those leadership positions. And then in February, the counterpart or the second part of that webinar is all on accompaniment. So if you're a section director, it's how do you accompany your group leaders or your team leaders? If you're a group leader, how do you accompany your team leaders? If you're a team leader, how are you supposed to be accompanying your team members? And so, of course, team dialogue is principal to that, or apostolic dialogue if you're accompanying somebody who's launching an apostolate. It used to be something we did all the time. Well, we kind of stopped doing that in general, and we recognize it's necessary that we do that so that the people who are volunteering in this beautiful way to serve other people also feel accompanied in their service to Regnum Christi and to the members. So that's what that webinar series is going to be like. I sent Teresa the information, but how do you access it? If you just go to the main Regnum Christi website, there's a toolbar right across the top, and it says things like, who are we? Where are we? It'll say news and resources, and then it says events. If you just hover over events, right there it says event calendar. And when you click on it, you find all the events right there. So you can actually go to the month of October and you can register for each one of those free events online. You can just do that. And that way you'll be able to attend those webinars. And I'm certain that they're going to record them. So what you really have to do is just register. And if you can't be there, then I think you would get the recording after she delivers the webinar. So that's the first thing I wanted to share with you. The second thing I wanted to share with you is in the discussion of localities where I'm just going to use mine, but I'm guessing your locality is similar, where the majority of the members are female, the majority of the members are a little bit older, and we haven't had a huge influx of new members in the last 10 years. So the question came, well, what happens when we do have a new member? Like, what do we do to help that new member really like live into their Regnum Christi vocation? Like, what do we share with them? What kind of resources do we give them? How do we do it? And what happened when we asked that question across the country, people were like, I don't actually know. Like, what do we say? Well, and then most often people would say, wait, do we still say that? So we decided that we would actually create, well, Maria did it because she's a genius, um, an RC intro course. So this is meant for people who've associated or are going to associate, like they've already done their discernment, but okay, so that's the intent of the course. But we realized that who do we really need to train? We need to train the people in the sections who would actually be accompanying that new member into Regnum Christi. So this first series of the course, which I also sent to Teresa, is invitation only. So it won't be on the event website. And it is meant for, there's three webinars in the fall and three in the spring. It is meant for developing localities. It's meant for us because if we're going to bring a new person into Regnum Christi, it's going to be done by us. It's not going to be done by a legionary. It's not going to be done by a consecrated. It's going to be done by us. So we want to open this to three different audiences. Somebody who's been associated in less than 5 years in a developing area. Okay, so maybe they just need it because they really haven't had a good introduction to Regnum Christi, or you want to make sure they're really up to date. For those people who are going to be in a section and actually tasked with facilitating the introduction course, or your formator who is accompanying those new members in. So we wanted to actually train the trainers. So this first session is open to anybody, like a team leader, a formator, or somebody who is new to Regnum Christi in the last 5 years and really wants to have an introduction course. That's this target audience. And I think she can take up to 75 people. And if it fills up, then we'll set up a second session of who's going to do it. There are two, when you register, which I sent the link to Teresa, there's two ways you can, well, there's two packages you can do. I believe the first one you register, I think it says the cost is like $30 or $34. And it's because Maria Knuth has created handouts and resources that she's going to actually mail to you, snail mail to you. So that's the first one. The second one is more expensive because she's going to reference like our RC essays that we have. And if you don't have those essays and you want to purchase the essays, you can always register at the more expensive cost if you want. And she'll send you the essays yourself. I mean, you can get the essays online if you want. They're in the bookstore and you can also download them as PDFs. But if you want them sent to you, she'll do that too. So we really worked to try to make this as accessible and user-friendly for anybody out there, whether you are a single person trying to start your own team, to you have a section that's just a little bit tired and needs kind of a refresh, or you're all brand new and you're like, okay, well, what do we do now? So that's the idea of this RC intro course. And I believe it starts it's either September, I think it's September, October, November, and then January, February, March, I think are the months, but they're there. And then the last thing I wanted to tell you about is we also have an ECYD travel team, because there are ECYD or Challenge and Conquest groups and teams all over the country that do not live where the legionaries or the consecrated are. And we recognize that it's very hard for the lay people to keep the energy and the excitement in those clubs going without any assistance from, somebody else, either consecrated or legionaries. And when you want to do a camp or you want to do a retreat or you want to do a night of formation, you want to share or highlight what a consecrated vocation even looks like. Well, it's hard for us because we can't get them. So there is an ECYD travel team that was launched this fall. So I wanted to share that with you too, because that's something we've been talking about for a couple of years, and we finally have that. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking and I'm gonna just see if you have questions.
How do we find out more about the ECYD travel team?
Okay. So what you would do is you would basically in your section or your teams say, I'm going to make this up, okay? I have a challenge club. We want to do a mother-daughter Advent reflection. I'd really like to have somebody from the ECYD team come and help us with this Advent reflection so we can introduce the girls to a consecrated woman. Okay, so then you would supply me with the information and the date, and I would look to see if the travel team can come and meet that. Great question. Thank you.
When I was at the last team meeting, Teresa, who's down at the bottom of my screen, Teresa Hasselnap and Jenny, they were discussing sort of, wanting to get ECYD going for their girls. Jenny, I know she's listening. She tried it a couple times, just got frustrated. I know Jeanette has too. And what I thought was really, really interesting is that they brought the idea of meeting together as families,
Yes.
including your husbands, having a cookout, doing something as a family, then breaking off, and doing something with the girls. So I could let Teresa talk more about that because it was her idea, and I thought it was really brilliant because it's been such a struggle to keep anything going with our distance apart from each other. And I thought trying to include families,
Mhm.
not that we don't do that anyway, but I just thought maybe it's really worth a try. So Teresa, I don't know if you want to add on what you were talking about. I don't know. She's got to get her.
Lisa, you're muted.
Yeah.
She's using her phone, so it's a little harder
Yeah.
without her phone, that's for
So
sure.
that idea kind of came out of two things. One was I took Teresa and Jenny and Bree's daughters down to be team leaders for Rachel's fifth grade pirate camp. And so there were four girls already who were team leaders. And I said, we got half of the battle. We've got the half of the battle already won because you have high schoolers, you have four team leaders. Usually you have the little girls and you don't have the team leaders. They have the team leaders who've had experience, and my daughter Rachel's willing to come up and help. She's kind of like on the travel team of her mom. I get my apostolic dialogue from her. And so I launched that idea to Teresa when we were driving back, and because the girls are kind of on fire from just coming off being team leaders and having that experience of stepping up and sharing their faith. And all of us want our children to grow in the faith and to become the generation who can stand up for their faith. And so when I visited parents team, I brought that up as well. But I also looked back in when I joined Regnum Christi back in 97. There was no legionaries here. There was like two teams here. It was very small. And we all could only do what our realities uh, suggested we could do. We had a small family, and so we started KidsNet, and we had family team meetings where the dads and moms came, and the moms did stuff with the kids, and the dads cooked us all hot dogs, and we sent everybody home on a Sunday, fed. But we had a team meeting, and I thought, because I think it was maybe Teresa or Jenny talked about the family, it's hard to always divide your family, and every night of the week I said, well, what if you did a family ECYD event where the moms and the team leaders worked with them, maybe the dads could do a gospel reflection with the boys, and you just kind of, I think my feeling is you have to make it work, and I feel like we have the flexibility now to see what are our given realities, who do we have, and how can we make this work? So it was like a family ECYD event, maybe once a month on a Sunday evening, and you come together and I got Rachel's created this amazing book that has all the team meetings that you need for a year in it. It has all the resources, it has all the QR codes for all the activities, and it's almost like here's the whole challenge program for a year. She's working on the one for the next year and the following year. And so we got the information, we got the girls. Now it's almost like, do you just let the clutch out and go with it? And so I'm kind of looking at the things that in our area that we kind of have the seed for and the people for, and how do we kind of let the clutch out and let the Holy Spirit kind of take off and do some things in our area. So that was kind of the one area, with the Challenge Travel Club, to do it, to make it work with our given realities in our family life.
And I
So I
say
wish we
too,
could have been in our meeting today because Father Patrick O'Loughlin, who is the director of ECYD department in the territory, actually talked about this new program that they're going to be training to, which is ECYD families. So it's something that we've been talking about a long time because we say we're pro family, and yet we have the mom leave on Monday for encounter and the dad lead on Tuesday for encounter, and the girls go to Challenge on Wednesday and the boys go to Conquest on Thursday, and now we've pulled the family apart 4 nights in a week. And that was just killing people. People were so burned out because it's too much go time. So the other thing that we're also part of the conversation today, and I'm totally supportive of this, is when we entered Regnum Christi, it was kind of the understanding you met every single week. And a lot of us were stay-at-home moms or worked part-time. So it kind of worked for us. That's not the case anymore. And so we have to be okay with maybe a Regnum Christi team only meets twice a month. Maybe an ECYD team only meets once a month. Like maybe that is the best that can happen. And we have to be okay with that. And I think that we're really the only ones that are stopping us from going forward because we kind of have a preconceived idea of how things worked in the past. And we assume it should work that way now. So I love the direction you're going. I think you are free to do whatever will work best for your people, your environment, and you meet as often as it's going to work for you all.
Right. And so one of the things that we do on an AFIRE team meeting or a leadership team meeting is that we would talk about, let's say if Jenny, Bree, and Teresa or maybe want to launch and with the help of, Karen, and do a family ECYD. What does that look like? How do we get you support? Or where do you draw the people from? And how can we support you, pray for you? And so those initiatives can get support from the team, and it's not like one person feeling like they're launching a boat and it's too much for them to keep afloat. There's no more lone wolves in this. I mean, we can't do it, and we want to build it up anyway at our team life, and so it builds team life. If Karen, if that's your team, is your team apostolate is to help this family ECYD, and to help that get launched. Maybe you don't necessarily that your kids aren't at that age, but maybe you can help by recruiting families. Maybe some of your kids and grandkids would be good families for it, or families from your parish, or families that have come to Regnum Christi events or retreats, and then they're attracted to our charism. So those might be good families to have them come to other events that kind of express our charism. So when the first thing we kind of do at an FRT meeting is look at like when Kate and Steve Dyer were interested in working with that theology of the body. We kind of are slowly kind of unfolding that. He's taken classes to get to trainers at theology of the body. And when we went to Indiana, we talked about getting first fruits started. So how does that work? Why do we network and get first fruits started? So we kind of brainstorm together. And so even if I'm starting first fruits down where I'm at and Karen is an hour north of me, at least we know what we're doing, and she could benefit from hearing about it. And who knows, maybe God will open up some opportunity to meet people and go, oh, there's this program that Teresa launched. Maybe she can come up and talk about it with a couple of young families from my parish that I can invite to my house. So we talk about the apostolate. And I feel like something's brewing. I mean, I just feel like and we want to be prepared and formed as that's the F in AFIRE is our own formation. Like we need to go back maybe and get some of the nuts and bolts formation of our charism, how we develop a spiritual life, our personal accompaniment of those that we're recruiting or forming, and just our own formation. And then that leads us into what topics do we study this year in our mornings of reflection. we've had some great topics, but now we're looking at what do we want to get formed on this year. So the AFIRE team kind of talks about that and dialogues about what the priests are able to do and what they're not able to do, and then their gifts and talents and what they could bring because they've come to our locality, so they know us some. And we have a unique situation this year with the Notre Dame priests. They're able to help us out September, October, November, and December. But because of their teaching schedule in spring, they won't be able to come January through May for our mornings of reflection and our even those are on Zoom. But then talking to Donna, there's other resources. Was one of the programs that you talked about, was that called Wisdom Wednesday? Was one of
Oh,
those?
yes. So in the developing areas, they don't have legionaries who come and do evenings of reflection. Like they don't have access to that. And although we can do them ourselves, when you're a small section and you're always the one doing it, it gets a little old. So we have a digital or a virtual one called Wisdom Wednesdays, where we are putting together a calendar of monthly webinars done by either a Legionary of Christ priest, a consecrated woman, or perhaps a lay formator. And they are roughly an hour in there. And then they are themed from the whole theme idea is from member to apostle. That's this year's theme. So it's helping to move people from being just somebody who's on a Regnum Christi team to actually being an apostle according to the Regnum Christi charism. So there are the first month is on RC identity, then the second month is on the principles of apostolic action from our charism. Living team life well, especially if you're on a virtual team. Then evangelization. And then the last one, I think, is from member to missionary. One more, building an RC legacy. So that's kind of the idea. I can send you the agenda and the times and everything if you want. You're welcome to participate anytime that you want to. You can participate live. You could get the recording at some point in time. You could use it for ongoing formation if you want. I would say the same thing even from if you come to the 6 sessions that Marie Knut is going to do on the RC intro course, that would be great material for a study circle. Because each one is going to have excerpts from the essays or things that they'll invite you to read or to ponder more. So there's a lot of options there. I'll make sure when we finish the Wisdom Wednesdays, we're just getting the final speakers in. I'll make sure I send that to you, Teresa, so you have it.
I guess I want to talk about these things.
You're on mute. There you go.
I guess I wanted to just bring up these ideas because I feel like there's a certain amount of a synergy and openness to what the Holy Spirit has for us. And when Father John Bartunek gave his talk, he's the new North American Territorial Director. He used the word level up a lot. I don't know, it's a new term for me. Like when you play video games, you kind of have to go through all these mazes and get your whatever you collect and points and everything, and then you get to the next level because it suggests a new skill level, a new challenge, but you've leveled up, like you've navigated some difficult pathways and you've leveled up. And I guess I feel like I want to level up. I guess I feel like just becoming the group leader. I feel like that's causing me to level up, that I want to kind of comb through my understanding of the charism, how I'm living Regnum Christi, so I can share that in a way. Because when we're in a smaller section like that, it'd be easy to confuse Regnum Christi with Teresa Peach. When you go to a convention or something bigger, you just see the whole life of our charism. It's just bigger than one person, and how I choose to live that out through my baptismal promises and my spiritual gifts will be different than the way Jody does or Linda does or Karen, whoever, Jenny, and it looks different. But then you start to see it's kind of like a diamond with different facets, and each facet is real important to reflect something bigger about the truth of our identity. And so I'm just really trying to help women, help all of us as members to understand and see the gem that's in me from my my facet, from my charism, my vocation to Regnum Christi. We put that together and we really start to sparkle. We start to have that dynamism of our charism. And little by little, things seem to start to move forward, and so I'm excited about that. And we're just going to want to share that together and kind of benefit from that, be energized by that. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
I I can't figure out how to raise my hand, so forgive me.
No worries.
Karen was talking about the challenge groups or the ECYD groups that we had in the past, and one of the difficulties that we had was it's so amazing for these teens to come and be willing and excited to teach the younger girls. And it's great to have the materials that they will be teaching. And I know you internalize that when you have to teach it. But in the way that you offer those kind of virtual evenings or courses to us as the adult members of Regnum Christi, is there any sort of formation that these girls could plug it into? Like, if we're meeting once a month and then another is a planning meeting, is there like a formation, something for them so that they can like grow a little bit more in this at the same time? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. And actually, I think we can be very creative. When I was overseeing the Regnum Christi Mission Corps, the program that we had for our RC missionaries. That was one of the things that we talked about. We said, okay, look, why are we not leveraging all the amazing formation that the girls are getting? And we're only focusing on the girls where they are there. So we started sharing, like, one of the consecrated would do she would choose a theme, or there would be a theme, and she would deliver that to that group. So I think that's completely possible. And one of the things that we're seeing with the consecrated women is as much as they don't want to travel outside of their localities, many of them are willing to do something virtually. So this team that we have, that's the traveling team, they would also do a virtual webinar, a virtual evening of reflection, whatever, for the girls. And you could do that in a way where maybe the consecrated is the only one on the virtual and the whole team is together. And they listen together, and then they ask questions together, and they interact together. And perhaps there's a breakout or a group sharing or something like that. Like, our consecrated sisters are really good at that. And some of the ECYD formators are very good at that. So I think we could be very creative. Is a plan. You just need the plan.
Kind of like encounter team for our girls the one time, and it was like so powerful, so to have that, because the girls, they really resonate with the consecrated women. There's just something about it. And so I think, I always thought, man, there's ECYD everywhere. So many people don't have like a group to plug into. Wouldn't it be helpful to have that virtual option, and then it sort of inspires them even more, you know what I mean? So I love that option.
Great. That's great. Teresa, you said something, and I want to just touch on it, because you talked about no longer having the Lone Ranger who's doing all the apostolate themselves, and nobody's maybe helping them, or they're not feeling the support. We've really learned something about ourselves in that we are much better in shared apostolate. There is a reason that we used to say 2 by 2 or in teams. And when the scandal happened and everybody kind of went to their own quarters, most people got really involved in their parishes, but they did it individually. And so you have teams of Regnum Christi members that meet every single week, but every single person on that team is doing something different in their parish community or in their diocese. And we're missing something, because the team life it vibrates when there's shared apostolate. Doesn't mean you have to do the exact same thing all the time, 7 days a week, 52 weeks out of the year. But maybe once or twice a year, you actually come together and you do something that's apostolic in the mission of Regnum Christi, because it breathes life into your team. So I think part of the the renewed way of doing our case studies, our discernment of apostolic reality, is to really get people to remember that we are both contemplative and evangelizing. We pray so that we can act. And we kind of lost sight of that.
Right. And I feel like as we pray and then we act, I feel like, um, we kind of are following the Holy Spirit, and that may look a little outside the box of the way we used to do things, kind of like, but it seems very exciting. It seems like, God really wants to stir hearts and respond to things, because I feel like we've had Regnum Christi here long enough. We've had a lot of people went through Familia, hundreds of people went through Familia, and there's like, we have all these seeds around. We have all these seeds around that we've planted. Like my son now, who's 31, he runs a gospel reflection group in his house every Tuesday, and he has like 6 or 8 guys that come every Tuesday because he grew up going through the clubs. And I think now they're all getting married. I had a young women's team study for 3 years, and we're getting back together next Monday for the first time. We took a year off because they all got married and had babies. So now I have like all these relationships with like 20 young women, but now they're in a different state in life. And so now but I got to know them when they were worried about who they were going to even date and get married to. Now they're married and worried about how they're going to cook supper. So it's a different reality, but I have those relationships. And it seems like we're very positioned with a lot of connections, but we need to work together to brainstorm and look at how do we walk out those connections in a very faith-filled, formed, energetic way together as a team. And so I'm excited about how that's going to happen, but I have a certainty that God's going to do it, but I have no clarity exactly what it's going to look like.
And I do have somebody on my team, Father Brian Holson, who has lots of experience with ECYD. But he's working on my developing localities team. So if you put something together and you want a priest to come, you don't have to pull from Cincinnati if you don't want to, or Detroit if you don't want to. You can always let me know, and I can work to get him to come out and potentially do something especially if you do like a family formation event or something like that. I'm certain that we could make that a reality. It's just a matter of scheduling. So
Okay.
it's just getting it in there and getting him booked.
Okay. Karina, you look like you're percolating on something there.
No, I missed a lot of what was being said because someone walked into my office.
Oh, okay.
I did
Okay.
want to mention earlier that one of the things I think it's like important for us to kind of all try and connect so we all kind of know what's going on. I mean, I've been out of the loop, a lot of that's my fault, but I did want to mention when you're talking about ECYD and stuff that we do have a handful of boys here too, who have gone, to Camp Costero and have joined ECYD, but have nothing to do with that now.
Right.
So yeah, I know that would be something that along with the girls, it'd be nice to have a place for the boys too in ECYD who are, want to take that step beyond conquest.
Right.
And I'm sure you guys, you're talking about people who are probably very well formed, but there is a phenomenon I'm seeing everywhere, especially in these areas that don't have legionaries and consecrated. So you're not showing up at evenings of reflection where you've got well-formed people talking to you all the time, or they're not Regnum Christi children that grew up in Regnum Christi families. We see, well, if you look at it, because it looks like, Corrine, you're in a parish office or at a school or something, right?
Yeah, I'm at Walsh Jesuit High School. Yeah.
Okay. So when you look at most lay people sitting in your pews, most of their formation stopped the year they got confirmed,
Right.
which is like 7th or 8th grade, which is ECYD age material. And so we are finding that the parents are very much intrigued with what the kids in ECYD are learning. And it's very attractive to them because that is where their own formation stopped. So it's like this opportunity that we have in Regnum Christi to do family formation according to ECYD, which actually is just adolescent Regnum Christi. So even in ECYD, we have something called the kingdom, they call them the kingdom building blocks. And they're basically the apostolic principles of Regnum Christi, but for ECYD. But they translate like exactly in just more mature language to the apostolic principles of Regnum Christi. So it's like this perfect bridge if we work it well. And we're seeing it all over. Like parents don't want to leave the ECYD meetings because they're actually being fed, but they don't have to admit that, hey, I don't know any of that. I'm just sitting here listening while my kid is, getting their formation. So I think that we in Regnum Christi have an incredible opportunity to capitalize on that.
Mhm.
I have a question regarding this. Teresa Peach, your daughter put together an excellent guide for challenge. Has a legionary put together a guide for conquest that's similar?
You know what I would have to ask Father Patrick because I don't know what Rachel put together. So I don't know if it's right out of the resources that they have or if she created it special. What I do know is they're rewriting both programs. They are completely rewriting, revamping both programs, and they're developing the leadership part. They're developing the Knights of the Altar part. They're developing a family ECYD family part. So there's a lot happening right now in terms of resource development for ECYD. So I would have to just ask if that's there.
Right. Okay. Very good.
Great. If does anybody else have any more questions? Because if not, I can step off and that way you guys can have the rest of your meeting to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Okay. Any other questions for Donna?
I just wanted to ask, I'm sorry, Linda, go ahead, because I
No,
already
that's all right. Go ahead.
Oh, how do we keep our teams going when we have, we've got older women and then we've got younger women with families and kids, and their needs are different than the needs of the older ladies, which is sometimes I think a huge struggle for us. We're spread geographically and I don't know.
It is a huge struggle, and I think our developing areas, it's a bigger struggle for us because geography kind of dictates what team you're on as opposed to your state in life. What normally is recommended is that you're all on a team where your state and life matches. But that's a difficult place where you are right now. So it does take some creativity. And as a team leader, it could be that you just have a very frank conversation with the team in terms of we want to meet the needs of both of the audiences on our team. So how could we actually do that? Like what could we do perhaps once a month that would really engage our older members? And what could we do perhaps once a month that would really engage our younger moms and bring the team into that conversation about, well, what could that look like? So that they recognize you as team leader, or whoever the team leader is really working to try to create some type of a homogenous meeting there, recognizing that people are at different states in life. And I think apostolically, we have a lot of older women in Regnum Christi across the country. Okay, a lot of women in their 60s and 70s or even 80s. And so their apostolic energy for most of them is not what it used to be. And sometimes we just write them off. But there are certain things that they could do that would be participating. Like they could pray and sacrifice for the success of the ECYD group that's going to happen. They could be prayer partners. They actually could come to an event and maybe their only responsibility is to lead the opening prayer. Or maybe their only responsibility is to lead the closing prayer so that they feel like they're a contributing member if they can, but according to what they can do. So I don't know if that helps at all.
I think that's a good door opener to discerning our realities here, what the younger families need and what us older ladies need, and how we can, how does it work? How have you seen the success or non-success of virtual teams? What has that been like when people have to meet virtually?
So believe it or not, we have a lot of virtual teams, and we would have never been open to that until COVID happened. And so there are teams, especially honestly in the big metropolitan areas like Los Angeles, there are 10 women's teams there. They all meet virtually because the traffic is so severe that they cannot, I mean, it takes them hours to be able to get anywhere. The upstate New York ladies, they meet virtually because they're so spread out. And again, the same, the traffic's so bad for them that it's hard for them to come together. Most of the virtual teams come together once a month to do either an integration event or some type of like group formation, social something, so that they don't completely lose that
Right.
in-person part. But a lot of the teams, the virtual encounters are actually more better attended than the in-person ones. You just have to get more creative with your case studies. So, at some point in time, I could come back and could give you some examples, but I've talked to a lot of team leaders and they're like, okay, well, help us with this discernment of apostolic reality when we're a virtual team. We don't all go to the same parish. We're not even in the same neighborhood. So how does our resolution become something that actually empowers us to be apostles outside of our home? And so we can address that. It just takes
Okay.
being a little bit more creative, but there's a lot of virtual teams that meet.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll have to talk about that and, see what serves those who, for different states in life and what might serve them. So we'll talk about that. Like I said, we're letting the Holy Spirit lead here and seeing that we have the freedom to kind of let him lead and grow us in this direction. So, no, I really appreciate you coming, Donna, and I think maybe we can chat a little bit here. Um, unless anybody, oh, Don, I'm sorry, Linda, you had a question.
I just would like to say that I'm really appreciative of the sessions that it sounds like Maria put together for the various different roles, the different types of leaders. When, Donna, would you, expect that those will be coming out, or how will we find out about
I
it?
actually sent the information to Teresa. So
I'll
as
send you
soon
the
as
flyers. I have
she'll give it
those.
to you.
Great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm easily accessible. So if you have a particular question, you can reach out, or if there's something that comes to you after the webinar and after you're all done, you're like, oh, I wish I would have asked, you can send me an email, you could send me a text message, a WhatsApp, whatever. I will respond. And if there's something that you all agree that you would like to have, then Teresa can, she can let me know and I'll do the best I can to accommodate you.
That's great.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks, Donna.
Bye.